Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's very wonderful to see such a strong turnout of these GCC leaders, the enterprise leaders, the transformation heads, the AI practitioners, and the decision makers. This is clearly a topic that is very timely and very real for all of us. Yeah. So we are here to talk about something that is no longer optional, that how GCCs, the Global Capability Centers, can move from experimentation to real AI-driven impact. So that's what we are going to talk about today. Myself, Vaibhav, I am the founder of Ambillio. I work closely with the enterprises on large-scale AI adoption and capability building programs. And over the past few years, one theme that has been consistent, everybody wants AI impact, but very few know how to structure it at a scale. So that's exactly what today's conversation is all about. Yeah. So I am very pleased to introduce Sandeep also, who is joining with us. Sandeep Sharma is the co-founder and the director of Capax Global, where he leads the design and scaling of GCCs, the Global Capability Centers, for multinational enterprises and private equity-based firms. Yeah, Sandeep brings deep expertise in building GCCs from the ground up, from strategy and operating model to governance and execution. He has seen what works, what fails, and what separates a cost center from a true innovation engine. Between Sandeep's real-world GCC execution experience and my work in enterprise AI transformations, we hope to bring both strategic clarity and practical insights to this discussion. Yeah. So, Sandeep, welcome. Great to be with you today in this session.
Thank you, Dr. Vaibhav. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Vaibhav. It's a pleasure to be in this session. And I think this is going to be a very scintillating session wherein we are going to cover a very, very hot topic. How can enterprises, how can GCCs look at building AI CoEs? I think this is going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah. So before we jump into the discussion, I would just like to set up some context and share some insights here. And then we'll have some discussions with Sandeep after that, okay? So India today hosts over 1,700 GCCs, the Global Capability Centers. These generating over 64 billion in annual revenue. In just 5 years only, if we talk about, the number has gone from around 1285 to nearly 1800 now. On an average, every year, 100 new GCCs have came and set up their centers here in India. On an average, 100 every year. What's even more important here is growth in numbers, is the shift in the mandate, right? So 20 years ago, GCCs were primarily about cost arbitrage, right? The mindset was around the cost arbitrage mostly. But today, 90% of the GCC leaders say their India centers contribute for beyond cost saving. They are not only looking for the cost saving here. Earlier, they were coming for the cost saving. Now they are not only coming for the cost saving. Nearly half are involved in global decision making. Half of the GCCs are involved in global decision making. Okay, so many now own end-to-end products, platforms, and global functions. Right. So while setting up the office here in the GCC is not only about the cost saving. We are also seeing over 185 dedicated AI Center of Excellence, the CoEs, already operational across GCCs. And more than 80% of the centers actively investing in AI and generative AI technologies, right? So this tells us something very, very important. And what it tells, the mandate has changed. The expectations have changed. The bar has changed, right? But what is the contradiction here is, while AI adoption is high, sustained enterprise scaling, the AI impact is still rare. That the scaling that was supposed to happen, that was supposed to be visible, that is still rare, right? So many AI center of excellences within the GCCs remain stuck in the pilot mode only. The business teams struggle to see measurable return on investments. Governance is unclear. Talent churn is very high, right? So there's a contradiction that we see. So the real question is not whether AI matters for GCCs. The question is, how do you build an AI center of excellence that actually delivers enterprise impact and sustains it? That's what we will be exploring today. So moving on. Let me start with something we both see very frequently. Yeah. So many GCCs launch AI initiatives with energy and optimism. Okay. There are hackathons, pilots, proof of concepts like POCs, sometimes even awards as well. They get awards, so many kinds of awards. But 1 year or 1.5 year later, 12 to 18 months later, very few of those initiatives translate into scaled production grade impact. So from your experience, Sandeep, building and scaling GCCs, what typically cause AI center of excellences to stall at the POC stage only? And what
Okay.
distinguishes the ones that successfully move into enterprise-wide adoption? Over to you.
Oh, wonderful. Dr. Vaibhav, this is a great start to the podcast and the webinar. So as I told earlier also that this is a very hot topic. In fact, when we look at all the major chunk of GCCs that have been set up over the last 12 to 18 months, a consistent trend that is there in the industry is that most of these GCCs have analytics and AI mandates. And when you speak to the analytics and AI heads, you actually get to hear that everybody is working on Gen AI initiatives. And now organizations and leaders are working on agentic AI initiatives. And obviously, there are various statistics. Dr. Weber, you have also pointed about some statistic here. And we have MIT statistics, MIT research report statistics, which talk about the fact that 95% of projects actually fail. Let's look at what is happening in the GCC space in India. Close to about 70% of GCCs are stuck at what we call a level 2 or level 3 maturity on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is the lowest level of maturity and 5 is the highest level of maturity. Now, this is the brutal truth. Now, the thing is that this is a COE on paper. The COE and the GCC literally has run proof of concepts, POCs. They have had some data scientists, but they cannot systematically convert all of these experiments into production grade business impacting systems. And let me be very, very upfront with you. The technology has fairly matured to a certain degree over the last 4 to 5 years. And even if you look at agentic AI, the technology is very progressively, very quickly maturing to a certain degree. The gap is not technical, the gap is structural. Now, it's a very important question that you have asked about what are the main reasons for stalling of the POCs for AI, Gen AI, and agentic AI in GCCs right now. Let me just flip the question in a manner and give you an answer based on winners. So here is what I should be telling the audience. There are three things. There are three factors, considerations that clearly separate the winners from the laggards, if that is the right word to use, based on maturity levels. This is what the winners actually do. First, and this is very, very important, they treat ML ops as a prerequisite and not as an afterthought. Many COEs, many GCCs, they try to consider AI, Gen AI as some shiny, objects, and they actually do not. They actually try to scale use cases even before they have a functioning, data platform or an MLOps platform. And the instinct is quite understandable. The leadership wants very visible and very, very quick AI wins, and that too really, really fast. But essentially, what happens is the GCCs will end up with dozens of so-called Jupyter notebooks that were never designed for production. Every deployment becomes like a one-off firefighting exercise. The GCCs that crack POC to production have level 2 ML ops or level 3 ML ops. And what I mean by that is that there are automated pipelines, model registries, drift detection, and all of this actually is materialized and accomplished before they try to scale beyond, let's say, 2 or 3 use cases or 4 use cases. I think this is very, very important. Building the overall foundations for data management for ML ops as a very critical prerequisite is very, very important. Second, most of the winners in this particular category, they enforce stage gate discipline. Top quartile COEs that we have seen, they run a very formal portfolio review where close to about 40% of the POCs are killed at gate 1. Now, that might sound very harsh, and that might actually kill the ambitions for very over enthusiastic analytics and AI managers, not the leaders. So, for that case, but it's a very important signal of maturity. Don't forget this fact. If your kill rate for projects is near zero, you're not being selective. A portfolio approach is absolutely necessary for the success of your analytics and AI program. So if you're not being selective, you're essentially accumulating technical and organizational debt. So the gate criteria when you're looking at these kind of projects is actually very, very simple. So these are some of the criteria. So is there a named business owner? Is there a defined business KPI that the model will actually move? Is the data access confirmed, not assumed? This is a common mistake which many analytics and AI leaders and managers actually make. And the third is that the leaders assign a BU co-owner at the idea stage itself and not after the model is built. Now, the single most common reason AI models don't get adopted is that they were built by the COE for the BU rather than built with the BU. And there's a very subtle difference. By the time the model is ready, the BU has moved on, the use case has shifted, or the person who championed it has left. Joint ownership from day zero. Okay, let me just repeat this in slow motion. Joint ownership from day zero changes the dynamic completely. That's why it is very necessary to assign a BU co-owner at the idea stage. So in my opinion, these are the top three considerations that actually separate the winners from the laggards. So if you just flip the story, these are the things that most of the laggards actually do not execute well, and because of which a majority of the projects or majority of the pilot projects in the AI space actually stall. I hope this was a very long answer, Dr. Weber, but I hope that this answers your question.
That was very comprehensive and informative. Yeah, that was great. So moving on, let's talk about the structure then. Okay. So when organizations decide to formalize an AI center of excellence, there is always a debate. Should it be centralized under one leadership team, or should it be federated across business units? Should it sit within technology, strategy, or operation? So given the complexity of these GCCs with global reporting lines and local execution, what operating model have you seen work best? And what design mistakes should leaders avoid early on? So what's your take on this?
Okay, so based on whatever I've seen for the COEs that have been set up in GCCs in India and also in some mature organizations, the choice for the right operating model, whether it has to be centralized, federated, or a mix, which is a hybrid model, that depends on where the GCCs or the COEs are in their journey right now. But you would find that most mature GCCs, they actually look at a hybrid hub and spoke kind of a model. Okay, so let me talk about each one of these models. So I'll first touch upon the centralized model. The centralized model actually, works quite well in the early stages of maturity, where the organization needs to concentrate on a very, the availability of talent, where the availability of talent is low. The organization is building a common platform and it needs to establish standards. So the centralized model works well in this particular case. Now, one of the larger banks in India, when they set up a GCC, this is almost about a decade back, when they set up a COE in the AI space in India, they started with a centralized team, which was a very, very tightly knit team of about 10 resources reporting directly to the global CTO, and they were building foundational capabilities before expanding. The problem with being centralized too long is that the BUs might feel that AI is something that happens to them rather than with them. And you can actually connect this with the last point that I was talking about. This is one of the key reasons why adoption stalls. So this is a slight, problem or a concern with the centralized model. When you look at the federated model, on the other hand, where each BU runs its own AI team, this actually gives you speed and contextual relevance. And we're talking about larger organizations, larger GCCs here. So, for example, a large retail-focused GCC uses this effectively in India because their business units like e-commerce, supply chain, stores, maybe some other functions, they have genuinely different data environments and timelines. The risk is the risk for this kind of a model is, fragmentation. You end up with three. Just imagine that when you have a federated model, you can essentially end up with three different teams independently building document extraction solutions, none of them talking to each other, and all of them reinventing the wheel. This is what actually happens in a real life scenario. So, in my opinion, and this is what has been observed, so it is the best of both these worlds, which is the hybrid model where the CoEs as well as the L4 resources actually land. A central platform team which owns the MLOps infrastructure, the feature store, the governance framework, the shared model assets. So this is the crux, this is the key, the hybrid model. But each BU has an embedded AI champion. There is someone generally who physically sits with the business, understands the workflows, identifies the use cases, drives adoption. The central team actually builds the highway, and the BU champions drive on it. So this is the optimum model, especially for larger organizations. And one question that has been asked by many GCC leaders, especially when they are scaling, what is the trigger to move from centralized to hybrid? I think the trigger is when you are actually hitting 8 to 10 live use cases and you realize that the central bottleneck is slowing you down than the fragmentation world. Till then, you actually are fine with the centralized model. But then as soon as you start scaling beyond a certain number of use cases into production, you will slowly and steadily realize all the bottlenecks of the centralized model. And then possibly you need a fair bit of centralized infrastructure, governance, shared models and assets. And obviously you need the hybrid model, the federated structure to work with different BUs. So in summary, Dr. Vaibhav, I think the answer, as I said in the very beginning, the answer depends on the overall maturity of the GCC and the future ambition.
Understood. Yes, yes, yes. So one of the realities of GCCs is that strategic authority often still sits with the headquarter. Like they sit in the strategic authorities. Okay. So even if India has the talent and the intent, the sustained investment depends on the global leadership confidence, how confident the global leadership is. So when a GCC leader wants to build a serious AI center of excellence here, right, not just a symbolic one. So how should they frame the business case? What resonates with the headquarter? And how do you ensure that support contributes beyond the first budget cycle? So what would be your take on this?
Okay, now this is a classic dilemma that every analytics and AI leader is in. And this is one of the most political challenges. And it is one challenge that many, even technically excellent AI COE leaders actually quite underestimate. No, so we should understand that the GCC is itself in a very complex position. It needs local organizational autonomy to innovate, and that has been voiced by many GCC leaders in the recent past. But we should not forget the fact that it operates within a global mandate which has been set by the headquarters, and that headquarters is actually thousands of miles away and is more often than not very skeptical of the initiatives and the value that the GCC accomplishes for the parent company. Now, how do you actually build the business case and get the sustained headquarters buy-in for this AI COE in India? There are actually a few lessons that we have extracted by speaking to different GCC and AI COE leaders. So the first lesson for the leaders is that your first use case is a political decision, not a technical one. The sooner we realize that, the better it is for the analytics and AI COE leaders. So what we mean by this is that very often we become very enthusiastic, very ambitious about the AI projects. Now, the key here is that we should not pick the most ambitious AI problem as the first problem. We should definitely pick the one that will be most visible to the global leadership. We should pick the use case which is most likely to succeed within, let's say, 1 or 2 quarters, if not less. It should definitely, start, giving any business value within for the first 80, 90 days. And more importantly, this use case should have a BU sponsor who will actually support you throughout, and this actually gets missed out. The BU sponsor will also be someone who will actually trumpet the results once the value is realized very, very loudly in the parent organization. So this is very, very important. Now, the second lesson is that everything has to be translated in the CFO language. Now, the biggest mistake that COE leaders actually make in these, presentations, business case presentations, is actually they talk a lot about model metrics, technical metrics. They talk about accuracy, F1 score, AUC. In fact, nobody at the global C-suite level cares. They care about three things: what is the cost reduced, what is the revenue enabled, and what is the risk avoided. These are the top three metrics which a CEO or a CFO or a COO would actually care about. Now, every AI initiative needs a financial transaction before it goes upstairs. So for example, the fraud detection model achieved 94% precision should ideally become a statement something like this: that our fraud model prevented $43 million in annual losses. If you're able to do that, I mean, this is the business case, or maybe the metrics translated into the CFO language or the CXO language. This will actually get you in. So this is very important. And the third one is we should always create visibility mechanisms and not just reporting cadences. Top GCCs maintain a real-time business AI value dashboard that is generally accessible to the global CTO at any time. So this is not, I'm not talking about a monthly slide deck, but this is like a live dashboard view of which models are running, what are they generating, what is in the pipeline. So when the headquarter can actually see the value with their own eyes on a day-to-day basis, the conversation shifts from you have got to prove it to how can we do more of this. This is the third. And last but not the least, I think we should negotiate the governance relationship explicitly. This is especially true for the COE leaders in GCCs based in India. The tension between the headquarters and the parent company headquarters and the COE autonomy is real. The GCCs that manage this particular dilemma and the tension better, they have a formal AI charter. So this AI charter is essentially but a document which is co-signed by the GCC MD and the global CTO. And this explicitly defines the key decisions that the India team can make unilaterally, what requires headquarters approval, what will be the escalation path, and how will it look like. So all of this is necessary and is essentially captured in this document. And without that clarity, every significant AI decision essentially becomes a political negotiation. And I mean, this is something that should be avoided at all costs. So everything should actually be negotiated properly, especially the governance relationship, and should be put down explicitly. So 4 key lessons. The first use case is very important. It has to be a political decision, not a technical one. Second, CFO, CXO language metrics. This is what they understand. The third is you have to create visibility mechanisms, something that the COO or the CFO or the CTO will actually look and realize on a day-to-day basis. And the governance relationship has to be defined explicitly. So these are 4 lessons, Dr. Vaibhav.
Yeah, understood. Yeah, very clear, very clear. So here is a question on talent strategy and retention as well, like AI talent mostly. So talent is both, India's biggest strength and its biggest constraint as well. So we are seeing intense competition from experienced AI professionals. Everybody is looking for experienced AI professionals. Everybody wants experienced AI professionals. Okay, so there are also mid-level capability gap in the many organizations. So mid-level capability, that there is a gap, huge gap, right? So if you were designing the AI talent and strategy for a GCC Center of Excellence, what would be your top priorities? And just as importantly, how do you retain your best AI talent in a market where opportunities are everywhere? So what would be your take on this?
So if you look at the GCC space, Dr. Vaibhav, GCCs have close to about 2 million professionals working for this particular space, out of the 4 or 5 million professionals working for the overall IT sector. So if you look at the talent aspect, talent is definitely the most acute challenge for GCCs right now, and more so for other organizations as well. But GCCs are set up in India just on the premise that there is this talent availability. So talent becomes a very acute operational challenge for GCCs. Now, the talent market is, ferociously competitive. A senior ML engineer with 3 years of production experience. One of my friends way back, I'm talking about 4 or 5 years back. He was a very senior ML engineer, and with 3 years of production experience, he had 8 offers at a given moment. And we have all seen how much salary was given to them, and what kind of perks and benefits were given to data scientists at one point in time. This is just before COVID and during the first and second wave of COVID, right? So we have all seen all of those kind of waves, and especially from well-funded startups, right? Not only equity was given, but a lot of perks as well, right? So now the thing is that this is a specific challenge, and the AI CoE, which actually, or the GCC in this case, that actually will only look at compensation, that will definitely lose. You cannot simply outpay a startup with 10x equity, or a hyperscaler with unlimited unlimited budgets, right? So uh, essentially you have to compete on a whole set of different range of dimensions. So what are those considerations? The first is, you know research and creative and work related freedom. The most effective retention mechanism for senior level talent is a formal, let's say, I mean, just hypothetically speaking, what if you could design, let's say, like a formal 20% innovation time allocation, just structured time for self-directed research, not billable to any BU project? That might sound very expensive, but in practice, it's actually cheaper than a 34% annual attrition rate. Now, there are various larger product companies, IT product companies in India, which have actually institutionalized this, and their AI researcher attrition sits at 14% as against an average of close to about 25 to 30%. So this is actually very, very important. And this is mainly there for senior leadership, senior engineering leadership, and so on and so forth. Now, one of the most important considerations in the minds of talent, again, senior people, mid-level, professionals, is global visibility. When you're working in a GCC, you definitely want global visibility. Now, imagine for a moment that a principal AI scientist sitting in Bangalore often feels invisible to the global AI community. So in this case, you must have seen that, right? So you are an expert yourself. You are a PhD researcher, Dr. Vaibhav. You must have actually seen that. So global visibility definitely helps. So GCCs that retain this profile actively facilitate conference participation, and there are multiple global conferences that all of these principal AI scientists can attend. One of my friends who has a PhD in some medical related field, but he actually trained to be a data scientist right from his first job onwards. He's actually deeply motivated by creating a publication track, and so these he and number of other colleagues working in the same team, they are actually co-researchers. They author co-papers, they co-author papers, and sometimes the papers are authored with the global headquarter based colleagues as well. Now, when someone's name is on a paper that gets cited 200 times, imagine the excitement that is there in the minds of these principal scientists, or maybe senior level senior researchers and senior professionals. In these cases, the retention factor is quite high, and they're not leaving for a startup. So this is definitely there. Now, technical career ladders that don't require becoming a manager. So this is another underrated talent retention tool. So we should definitely have a dedicated individual contributor track, a fellow and a distinguished fellow ladder that matches director level compensation without requiring the person to become a people manager. Now, there are many brilliant AI researchers who have no interest in managing teams. And, there are people who actually thrive in managing teams, but very, very senior level researchers, they actually don't want to do that. So forcing them to grow into management, to grow their careers, is how you lose them. So this is as simple as that. Now, on the hiring side, the best CoEs are not competing in only in the open market. They are building university partnerships with the IITs, with the NITs, with IISc in Bangalore, with BITS Pilani, with triple ITs as well. And they are creating a 3 to 5 year talent pipeline through dedicated research fellowships. They run re-returnship programs, especially for women, returning after career breaks, and all of these measures are some measures which the so-called AI COE leaders, as far as maturity is concerned, they are doing it quite well. Can we take a break, Dr. Vaibhav? Just
Yes,
1 minute
yes.
break.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so I see Amit has joined.
Yeah, so let's change the gear a little bit. So let's talk about the data. Data is the foundation, okay? So AI conversations, they often jump quickly to models to the tools, right? Quickly from model and tools here and there. But without strong data foundations, even the best teams struggle, right? So data is the first and foremost and the most important thing whenever we are working on anything related to AI.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the GCC context, what data ownership may sit globally and systems are fragmented, right? So how should leaders approach data strategy when setting up an AI center of excellence?
Okay, so this is like the very foundation for the success of any analytics or AI program, right? So this is very, very foundational, and surprisingly, many GCCs, they are also culprits. I mean, if you look at all the larger enterprises, they have invested huge amounts of dollars in building data foundations. But again, this is one area where most of these people are lagging. This actually brings down the maturity levels of GCCs as well. Now, the typical pattern is this, that the COE, gets stood up, a few enthusiastic use cases kicked, these are kicked off. 6 months in, then everybody in the team hits a wall, because the data, there was this assumption that there is some data which exists somewhere within the organization, that data does not exist, or even if the data exists, it is not easily accessible, or if the data is so poor in quality that no model trained on it will work reliably. So this is the foundational mistake that I'm talking about. Treating data access as someone else's problem is one of the key issues that should be actually looked at by AI COE for success. So COE leaders often assume that data theoretically exists in the organization, it will be available to them, but in reality, data access often involves legal sign off. I mean, this is actually true, and you would definitely find a lot of GCC leaders and AICO leaders struggling on this aspect. You would also see a lot of privacy reviews that are there. So privacy reviews done by the cybersecurity team, the CISO team. Then obviously you have data owner approval, sometimes months of ETL work. So all of these are the real scenarios. So by the time the data arrives, the business context has shifted. So you wanted to work on something for a use case, the business context has completely shifted. And the enthusiasm to work on that specific use case is also diminished. So the fix is to mandate data owner sign off at the idea stage itself before any engineering work begins. So you should be able to clearly identify the data sources, the data assets that are there in the organization, and before any work begins, just get the data owner sign off. I think that is very, very crucial. The most important infrastructure investment that most GCCs under invest in is actually the feature store. Now we all know that the feature store is nothing but a centralized repository of pre-computed, governed, reusable data features. Now, without a data feature, every team independently computes the same features. Now imagine the duplication of efforts and resources that are there. Customer lifetime value, transaction velocity, product affinity scores. Essentially, the same features are being, let's say, being worked on from scratch. This wastes enormous amounts of compute and time, and also introduces inconsistency among models. GCCs should also pay heed to the fact that they should implement a feature store. And generally, what we have seen is that GCCs that implement a feature store typically see a 35 to 40% reduction in compute costs and a dramatic acceleration in model development time. Another aspect on the data management side is that data contracts, they are the governance mechanism that nobody talks about, but everybody needs. Now, a data contract, again, just to simplify this for the audience here, this is like a formal agreement between a data producing team and the COE that specifies the schema, the update frequency, the quality SLAs, and the notification process for breaking changes. Without contracts, you regularly discover that a data set your production model depends on has silently changed schema, and this can be actually highly misleading for the downstream work activities that are there. This can lead to model failures in the middle of the night and giving you sleepless nights. With these kind of contracts which are there, those changes are communicated well in advance and will be handled very, very gracefully by the business owners and the COE team. Now, there are some industry vertical nuances as well. So, for example, for healthcare and for BFSI GCCs specifically, synthetic data generation has become a very critical capability. When the real data is too sensitive to use for model training, high fidelity synthetic data sets, which are statistically equivalent to real data, but they contain no actual PII data, they can unlock a whole range of use cases that would otherwise be impossible for these GCCs. So now this is rapidly moving from a nice to have to a core COE capability. So in short, we should actually look at data as the key foundation for the overall AI COE success. We should definitely look at building the strong foundation. And I've just pointed out some key mistakes and some key considerations. So, for example, data access, availability, that is a key thing. GCC should definitely invest in a feature store. Data contracts are key. And obviously, one should not overlook synthetic data generation, especially for regulated industry verticals.
Got it. Yeah, very, very insightful. So, see, means we talked about so how to move beyond POCs. We talked about the right operating model. We talked about the talent in state, and we talked about the data as a foundation as well. Now, let's talk about something that is uncomfortable, but that is very, very critical, and that is the governance. Okay. So we have seen many AI programs fail, not just because the technology was weak, but because the accountability was not clear. The accountability was unclear, actually.
Yeah.
Risk management was reactive, or success metrics were poorly defined, right? So what are the most common governance breakdowns you have seen in the GCC's AI Center of Excellences? And how can leaders design governance structures that enable innovation while maintaining the control? So what would be your take on that?
So actually, Dr. Vaibhav, if you talk to engineers, there is one word which will make the engineers roll their eyes, and that word is governance. So they literally hate governance. So they want all the innovation in the world, but governance is a word which is hated. But bad governance is what kills COEs, even COEs that have excellent technical capabilities. Now, in the area of AI governance or data governance, there are 4 failure patterns that come up repeatedly during our discussions. The first is the governance theater, and this is the most common. The COE has a charter document, a steering committee, an AI council, a responsible AI framework, everything on paper, very, very beautifully written. But none of this is operational. This, telltale sign is a governance committee that meets regularly and makes no actual decision. So as soon as you see that, that is a sign that things are not moving on the ground. Real governance means that AI Council has the budget authority. This is the most important thing. You remember one of the points that I was earlier talking about, that organizations and AI COEs must have the authority to say yes or no to funding a use case, and their decision, in this case, the decision of the AI Council, should actually stick. So this is very critical. Without budget authority, governance is mostly an internal, let's say, branding exercise or a PR exercise. Just PR, I'm just using the word PR for the lack of a better word. So this is one important aspect. Now, the other important aspect is, the other important failure pattern is misaligned OKRs. Many COEs actually set OKRs that measure COE activity rather than business impact. Number of models trained, number of POCs, and number of POCs completed, compute utilization. So these are some vanity metrics which make the COE look busy. We have all seen employees, right, Dr. Weber, in
Yes.
organizations who actually look very busy, but their impact is very minimal. This is the same case with many activities that are being conducted and executed in AI COEs as well. So so most of these, the business should actually ask, why are all these projects not moving any of their actual KPIs? So if you look at the top quartile COEs, they link at least 60 to 70% of their OKRs directly to the BU P&L metrics. I think this is very, very important. The COE's success is actually defined by the business's success. There is no other mantra apart from this. So the OKRs have to be aligned properly to business success, business P&L metrics. The third is portfolio governance. I think I've already touched upon this point, that without a formal use case portfolio review process, the COEs accumulate initiatives indefinitely, and obviously there is this every BU request which gets a POC started. Nobody ever says no, and the team is stretched across 30 half-finished projects. This is a classic, make or break kind of a situation for the COE. Now, the stage gate model, which I earlier talked about also, where every initiative must pass through a defined criteria to advance from an idea to a POC to pilot to production. This is not just, process and bureaucracy. This is the mechanism that actually forces some sort of discipline, some sort of prioritization, and it actually prevents organizational debt from accumulating. So this is very important. So portfolio governance is actually quite important. And one of the things that has come up during my conversations is many GCCs are skipping AI ethics and related implementation. And especially as GCCs move into customer-facing use cases, for example, credit scoring, or maybe in clinical decision support, or hiring. The absence of a component, the bias review process could actually could be an enormous liability. The GCCs that have been ahead of this curve, they have a dedicated responsible AI committee that reviews every customer-facing model before production. The committee actually runs hundreds on a yearly basis. We take a model card for every life system. This is not just model risk management. It's a requirement for HQ to grant GCC autonomy to deploy most of these systems independently. So essentially, these are the four patterns. Governance theater. This is just theatrics is very high, but no activity and work on the ground. Second is misaligned OKRs. The third is zero portfolio governance. Fourth one is very low focus on AI ethics and associated infrastructure.
Yeah, nice thoughts. Yes, absolutely. And these are absolutely true. So let's talk about something more serious than governance, and that's the ROI. Okay. So whatever you do at the end of everything, the ROI will be asked, right? So ultimately, the executive leadership, they cares about the impact, not about the experimentation, right? So when reporting to global CXOs or the boards, what metrics do you think truly matter for an AI center of excellence? Is it cost saving? Is it revenue uplift? Is it productivity gain, time to market, or something else entirely? And one more question here is, how should GCC leader design their measurement framework from day one? What would be your thoughts on this?
Okay, so in fact, you mentioned about a few metrics. I think all of these metrics are very, very important to the executive leaders in parent companies. CFO needs business outcomes. The CEO obviously.
Sorry to cut you in between. Is it some noise coming from a headphone or?
Is it any better now?
A little better. Maybe the headphone is causing some noise.
Okay, any better now?
But much better. It's fine now. Should I repeat the question again, or?
That's fine. I'll just start from the answer again.
Okay.
So, Dr. Vaibhav, I think this is a very important question, and the short answer is, I think all the metrics that you just mentioned, I think all these metrics, they belong to the language which is spoken by the executive leadership, and we should understand that there should not be any mismatch with the overall expectations with regards to metrics of the executive leadership, or as expected by the executive leadership. The COE actually speaks in model metrics. So whenever you speak to the COE, you will talk about model metrics. Remember the model metrics I was referring to earlier. Whereas the CEO will speak on, let's say, revenue terms, on profit terms, and the CFO will speak in, again, business outcome terms. And the measurement framework actually that works has 4 layers. The first is financial value, cost savings, for example, cost savings from automated processes, revenue which can be attributed to AI-enabled products and recommendations. We see a lot of that happening with e-commerce companies and product companies which have their GCCs in India. Risk loss avoidance. We see a lot, again, with financial services firms, insurance companies that have set up their GCCs in India. So all of these these are the metrics which have direct and visual value, which can be attributed to all of these analytics and AI use cases. This is the most important part and layer that the CEOs and the CFOs most care about. This is very important. The second is obviously operational excellence. AI projects are essentially done for operational excellence. So under ops excellence, you definitely have process cycle time reduction, error rate improvement, decision speed. All these are key hallmarks of automation for any specific process or function. So these are, this is another layer of the measurement framework that COE leaders should actually consider. Now, the third is strategic value, which is being created for the organization. So any IP generated, any talent, brand strength, increase in headquarter autonomy. All of these are very, very important layers of the value and the measurement of that value. Now, this part, talent, band strength, increase in headquarters autonomy, all of these are very, very difficult to quantify, but these are actually very important. Now, imagine a scenario where a COE has filed 30 patents in 2 years. This is actually generating strategic value for the parent. This translates into ultimately a high degree of leverage for budget, headcount, and operational. The fourth is, I think, innovation velocity. I think this is something that is very important as well. How fast is the COE or the GCC moving from the idea stage to the production stage? How many live use cases have, how much free game and used and reused the team can see. These are all obviously internal efficiency metrics that matter for COE health, but they should also be translated into business terms before we. These are the 4 layers. So starting from direct financial, ops excellence, strategic value, and the innovation. What are the most important?
Is it possible if you can unplug this and speak directly? This headphone, I think, is causing some noise. No, voice is not coming.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. It's much clear now. It's very good now.
It's clear now?
Yes. It's perfect now.
This is much better than the previous one.
Yes. Earlier, the mic was working fine. After that, I think some bug started there. Yeah. Yeah, great. And nice thoughts, nice points that you jotted down on that. So this is the second last question. Is that,
actually, sir, let's move to the last question.
Okay, fine. So we have talked a lot about this, all right, from POC to data foundation to talent strategy to governance, and recently we talked about the ROI as well, right? So the entire operating model, the workflow, everything we have touched upon. Lastly, as an expert, Sandeep, having a deep expert in the GCC, this domain, and the entire GCC ecosystem, we have worked a lot for the GCC so far. So I have one question. My question is, if you were advising a GCC head who is about to start, who is about to start building a center of excellence today, right? Suppose you are advising someone who is going to start building a center of excellence today from scratch. So, what would be the 5 most critical lessons you would insist them internalize before they begin?
Okay, so wonderful. So, in fact, this is one of the most difficult tasks you have given me, Dr. Weber, to summarize the entire conversation into 5 points. Okay, I'll still, make a try, make an attempt. So, okay, so lesson number one, I think I talked about investment in the data platform before the portfolio, right? So it's very important to actually start looking at the outcomes right from the very beginning. But it could equally be fatal to not invest in the platform before looking at the actual outcome. So this has to be thought through by every GCC and AI COE leader. So I understand that there is a heavy pressure for every GCC leader from the headquarters and the parent company to show use cases and the value realization very quickly. But the GCC leader should actually resist that pressure long enough to build a proper MLOps foundation. And GCCs that have tried to scale use cases before their platform was ready, spent the next 3 years repaying technical debt while their competitors actually pulled ahead. So this is very, very important. Platform investment is the most important and most consistently underweighted decision in COE building. So this is lesson number one. Now, as I said earlier, technical decisions, technical complexity, technical failures can be managed very, very quickly, but we should definitely look at governance. So governance is a power structure. So governance is definitely not a document. The mistake that many COEs actually do is to just create a document. It is not a document. As I said, it is a power structure. COE cannot say no to, let's say, a bad use case, to a rush deployment, to a BU that wants to bypass the review process. I mean, that is simply not a COE. It's a service team with a better name. So let me put it simply in that fashion. So the governance structure must actually come with real budget authority and real escalation power. So this is very, very important. And I've highlighted this in the past in some of the earlier question as well. The third key lesson is that the talent experience is very critical for the AI COE, and consider this to be like your baby, your product, and the leaders in the GCC and the COE have to design this talent experience intentionally and in a very, very smooth fashion. The AI talent has the most options of anyone in the organization. If you look at GCCs in India, if you look at the AI talent in even developed countries, and more so in developed countries, this is very, very scarce resource right now, and this is one resource which is being pampered by a lot of organizations. So we definitely need to take good care of our talent, and talent experience is the key. So this is definitely one. Lesson number 4, business alignment. Again, it is not a phase, it is an ongoing operating mode. So the COE leaders definitely need to treat business alignment as that. Many COEs, they treat business alignment as something that you do at the beginning. Okay, so you take some requirements from the business units, from the business users, and then start building it. But essentially, it should not be stopped at that specific phase. AI adoption requires continuous engagement. Business processes need to be redesigned around AI outputs, and many GCC leaders would agree to the fact that the number of variations in any given process could be multiple, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the size of the function, and so on and so forth. I have seen, Dr. Weber, insurance companies and banks in India, some of the most complex organizations with some of the most complex processes, with hundreds of rules for the same deal that they are transacting. Amazing level of complexity, with hundreds of variations, hundreds of exceptions to the process. So, I mean, business alignment is definitely something which is an ongoing thing that AI leaders should also consider. So this is something that is very important. And last but not the least, value. We should not forget the value realization. You remember the 4 layers that I was talking about. We should definitely speak in the language of the executive leadership. We should prove the value of AI projects relentlessly, and we should also make sure that the right people see it. The CoE's ability to attract talent, budget, organizational autonomy, all of these are a direct function of how visible the impact of all of these AI initiatives is to global leadership. Now, this is not just about politics for its own sake. It's about creating the conditions for the CoE to become more ambitious and to be given more ambitious mandates over time. So, in short, the GCCs that have made the journey to Center of Innovation status all share one trait. The leaders were obsessed about translating AI impact into business language and making sure that this translation reached the higher echelons of the C-suite very consistently, very clearly.
Yeah, this is really incredible. This is a really incredible insight that you have shared. So what's clear is that building an AI center of excellence is not just a technology initiative. This is it's an operating model shift, a leadership shift, right? A capability shift, right? So the insight that you have shared are really incredible and yeah, unvaluable. So for everyone joining us today, the opportunity in India's GCC ecosystem is enormous, right? But scale without structure leads to noise. Structured capability leads to measurable impact, right? So thank you all for being part of this conversation, and we are open to any questions if somebody has, please. There is a chat. If you can drop some questions if you have, we will be happy to answer that. There is a question icon you would be seeing, so there you can drop your question if you have. One question from
one question.
Yeah. What is BU project?
BU project is a business unit. So it could be any business function, could be any business team that might function as a business unit. So suppose the HR function or the finance function, or maybe there's a larger company like Reliance, and Reliance, they have multiple business units. It could be different products also. So BU, the full form of BU is business unit, and it is defined in multiple ways. Hope this answers your question, Amit. Great, Amit. Thank you so much. So in case you have any other questions, please feel free to drop an email to either me or to Dr. Vaibhav. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking our time. Dr. Vaibhav, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I hope GCC leaders can actually derive some insights from this. And we'd be more than happy to actually engage with GCC leaders on any analytics and AI issues. And we can actually talk to them about use cases, about modernization, about optimization, and how they can build and scale AI CoEs much more efficiently in India. Thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead, and happy Holi, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.